Morning, Rabotai. We were speaking about some of the halachot of returning a pot of food or a tin of food to the heat source on Shabbat. Now, according to Maran Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is a little bit different for Ashkenazim. For Sfaradim, if it's a liquid food, in order to allow returning it to the fire on Shabbat, obviously the heat source has to be garuf v'katum, which means if it's let's say it's a stove, there needs to be a blech, or it needs to be going back on a plata. If it's a crock pot, then the base of the crock pot needs to be covered in a sheet or two of aluminum foil. That makes a garuf v'katum as well. That's the start. Now, besides for that, it has to be that the liquid is still yad soledet bo, or above, not below, because otherwise you have a problem of bishul. It also has to be that you did not put it on the ground. If once you put it on the ground or somewhere where it's not served, the halacha is it's like your masiyach da'at from it. You let your mind wander from it, and this is not returning. This is doing shehiyah for the first time on Shabbat, which is asur. Those are the criteria for returning a liquid on Shabbat according to Maran Shulchan Aruch. However, if it's a solid food, the halacha is that a solid food does not require any of these criteria besides for garuf v'katum, which means even if the solid food, we're talking about obviously where it's fully cooked, no question, fully cooked, solid, dry food, schnitzel, rice, kugel, whatever it is, and you want to put it back, you want to take it out of the fridge and put it on the plata or on a blech, Ashkenazim would be machmir, but according to Sfaradim, that it's perfectly acceptable for Sfaradim. So now we have to define what is a dry food and what is a liquid food. Obviously, a dry food is something that doesn't have liquids. Like we said, schnitzel, rice, kugel, those are examples of dry. Liquids are like soups and things of that nature. That's obviously a liquid. What happens if you have a food that is a combination of solid and liquid? Which means it has solid food in it, but also a little bit of liquid. Sometimes you have chicken like that, a little bit of gravy. Or sometimes you have meatballs, or who knows what. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of sauce or gravy in it. How do you look at that? Le'alacha, Maran Shulchan Aruch writes, he holds, and he writes actually in Bedek HaBayit, that as long as it is rov yavish, a majority of the volume of that food is the dry food as opposed to the liquid, that's considered a dry food. The liquid is considered mitztamik viralo. It gets worse as it cooks, as it reheats, and therefore it's mutar to put it back without the criteria of that we said before for liquid foods. There's machloket among poskei dorenu. What is the opinion of Banan Zichrono Lebracha with regards to how much liquid? Yes, rov solid, but how much liquid is no longer considered negligible? According to the Elbaz Yosef, he writes Meforash that as long as it is we go by statistics, rov, at least 51% solid, even if there's a lot of liquid there, but there is more solid than liquid, that's considered a solid dry food. The Halacha Berurah, Gaon Rabbi David Yosef, disagrees with that. He says that the liquid, the sauce, the gravy, whatever, has to be negligible, that it's mamash something small on the bottom. But if there's a lot of it, and it's nikar b'fnei atzmo, you see it's an entity unto itself, even though technically there is more solid, dry food than the liquid, it's still considered to be the davar lach, it's considered to be a liquid, and all of those criteria still apply. La'alacha, again, it's pretty clear from the Chazon Ovadia, like the Elbaz Yosef, that we go by volume, as long as, again, it's better to be machmir wherever possible, but for those who want to be mekil, if there is more volume of the dry, solid food than the liquid, you certainly have on whom to rely to consider that a dry food, and if you'd like to take it, even if it's cold, and put it directly on the plata or on a blech, the halacha is that would be mutar. You have to be very careful with regards to chalent. Chalent is a very, very dangerous thing. Many times chalents are very thick and fine. Okay, that we can consider a solid. But many times chalents are very soupy, and even though it looks like, there's obviously more solid in the liquid, you have to be very careful. Sometimes that's not the case. If you have a very liquidy chalent, you should treat it as a davar lach and only return it to the crock pot or to the plata or to the blech with the criteria that we said before that are necessary for returning a liquid food. Have a wonderful day.